and connecting to the Six-Day War. We are ready and set to go. So here we go. We're going to share screen as usual. And I'm going to pin this just, onto my face. So bear with me 1 second, please. Here we go. It's pinned onto my face. And once again, for those of you who have not been with me before, my name is Ami Braun, born in the U.S., made Aliyah as a little kid. I've been involved in guiding and informal education for the last over 20 years. Licensed tour guide, and off we go on Yom Yerushalayim, on Jerusalem Day Eve. Where, and when are we going to be traveling to today? So to get started, let's talk about really the where. We're taking a look now at a map of Israel in the Middle East, with the borders the way it looked before the Six-Day War, before June of 1967. Okay, we can see that at that point, this area over here, the West Bank, is in the hands of the Kingdom of Jordan, this whole section over here. The Sinai Peninsula, which is this area over here, was actually a buffer zone between Israel, which here is the border over here. North is Israel. This here, the Sinai Peninsula, will be a buffer zone between Israel and between Egypt. That's further south and west of over here. The United Nations will be sitting in over there. That's the geography. These are the areas that we're going to be talking about today, and specifically Jerusalem, of course. We're not going to be talking too much about the West Bank, but about Jerusalem, which Jerusalem at that point, before the Six-Day War, before it breaks out on June the 5th, 1967, is going to look like this, right? Jerusalem back then, from the time of the independence or 1948, for the next 19 years, until the Six-Day War breaks out in 1967, is a city with a border running through the middle of it. An 11-kilometer border. Okay, it's about 7 miles. Imagine a city that you're living in if you have a border simply cutting it in two and you cannot pass from one side to the other. That was the story over here. The border is this red line that's running over here from north to south. The left side with the flag of Israel is going to be the west, and the right side over here with the flag of the Kingdom of Jordan is going to be the east. And what's important to point out over here is the old city, which is over here, that I'm showing you right now with my marker. The old city was in Jordanian hands. It's on the right side, the eastern side of the red border over here. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the old city today. We're going to be going to the battles in Ammunition Hill, which is on the Jordanian side, a little bit north of Jerusalem over here. But that's the where. Now we're going to talk about the when. We're going to be entering now a month that is going to be critical in changing the way the Middle East looks like until today. We're going to touch it also from some classic aspects, but also from some not so classic aspects. We're going to be running, if the Six-Day was going to break out on June 5th, we're going to go back a little bit, close to 3 weeks before. We're going to start on May the 14th, okay, Dalet B'Iyar, on the eve of Yom HaTzmaut, on the eve of Israel's 19th Independence Day. We're going to start from over there. That's going to be our border for 1 second. We're going to talk about events that are going to take place for the next month, okay, leading up to the Independence War and the Independence War itself, and even right afterwards. Events that are both battles, but also songs that shape our memory of the Six-Day War. And we're going to be talking about a few songs, but centering mainly around what is maybe Jerusalem's most famous song, and that is Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of Gold. How does all this fit into over here? The battles, the songs in this month-long era that we're going to be talking about in these geographical areas we just pointed out to. Well, to answer that question, what I want to do is I want to jump forward now to the yeshiva. Okay, what are we doing in the Beit Midrash of a yeshiva? Okay, this is Yeshivat Merkaz Harav, which is in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Kiryat Moshe. And Yeshivat Merkaz Harav, this is a more present-day picture, but let's enter it for a minute in what was going on over here on Independence Day Eve of 1967, May the 14th, 1967, Dalet B'Iyar, at night already, Lel Hei B'Iyar, the eve of Hei B'Iyar, 1967, Tafshin Kav Zayin. Every Independence Day, okay, the eve of every Independence Day, there's going to be celebrations in the yeshiva over here. The yeshiva over here is a very religious yeshiva, a Dati Tzioni, a nationalist religious yeshiva, and the Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, the son of the famous Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak Kook, saw the creation of the state of Israel of what's called Atcharta de Geula, the beginning of redemption. And they'll see the state of Israel is a kli, is a vessel to this redemption. Now, they're going to celebrate Independence Day on the celebrations on the eve of every Independence Day. In Judaism, everything starts the night before, okay, when the moon comes out. So that's when they're going to celebrate. And something unique and different is going to happen in 1967, 3 weeks before the outbreak of the Sixth War, when nobody had any idea that anything is going on, that it's about to break out. There were no tensions at that point yet. And the Rav Tzviuda is going to stand up in front of everybody, and he's going to give what they call later a prophetic speech. And it's called Psalm 19, because it's 19 years to the creation of the state of Israel. And the Rav Tzviuda is going to start by reminiscing. And he's going to reminisce about what happens on November the 29th, 1947. What happens on that date? We have the United Nations Partition Plan. The United Nations votes to split Israel into two, half to the Jews, half to the Arabs, the land into half to the Jews, half to the Arabs, and then the independence will break out. And as we say, the rest is history. People will celebrate on November the 29th when the United Nations votes for partition, but the Rav Tzviuda reminisces 19 years later about how he does not. He doesn't celebrate on that day. That day for him is a day of sadness. And why? Well, let's read what he says over here, okay? And it's fascinating when afterwards we're going to see how history is going to roll out. And he doesn't know what's going on, any tensions, not at all. He says like this. He's going to say 19 years ago, okay, on that famous night, November the 29th, 1947, when the positive decision of the rulers of the nations to establish the state of Israel, when the entire nation was eager to celebrate its joy, I could not go out and join the celebration. I sat alone and red-eyed because I was burdened with my sorrow. In those early hours, I could not accept what was happening. The same terrible news that indeed the word of God was fulfilled through the words of our prophets, and my land was divided. Basically, the word of God fulfilled through our prophets was that we now have, the Jewish state again. But the United Nations split the land into two, okay? We're not getting everything he's saying. He's saying, where's our holy places? And these were the famous words that from then are going to be quoted and seen as prophetic. Rav Tzviuda is saying, where is our Shechem? Where is our Hebron? Did we forget it? And where is our Shechem? Did we forget it? And where is our Jericho? Are we forgetting it? Where's our Jordan? Where is each single piece, every part and part of the 4 cubits of the land of God? Where did it go? We want everything. Did we want to give up a millimeter of them? God forbid, not at all. And nothing, and this is what he's going to say. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to leave that night, okay? Morning, the following day is going to come. And what we want to do is we want to walk a few hundred feet, a few hundred meters. We're going to be walking from the Yeshivat, the Merkaz Harav Yeshiva, okay, which is in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Kiryat Moshe. We're going to walk down the street over here. We're going to make a left, and we're going to walk along and come to the ICC, the International Convention Center, because something completely different, yet very similar, is going to happen over there on the following day on Hey B'Iyar, the night at the end of Hey B'Iyar of Independence Day, or the 15th of May. And what I want to do is let's go for a walk over here on Google Earth Street View. And here we're going to go. This is the yeshiva. I'm sorry, I meant to point it out. This is the yeshiva of Merkaz Harav. Let's leave it. And let's walk to the International Convention Center. And you'll see that it's an easy walk. We're simply going to walk down the block over here. We want to get to the end of the road. We're going to sort of jump forward. And here we go. We come to the end of the road. This is the building that we want to go to, where it says ICC, International Convention Center. So basically, we've just come from over here. We're now going to walk up this street, and let's jump forward a little bit. Here we go. And we're going to come up to this right turn. This is the entrance to the city. This is where the Strings Bridge is today. Okay, back then in 67, of course, it wasn't there. We're going to make a right over here. Let's turn. And as we turn, we're going to walk up. The International Convention Center is beyond these trees over here. We'll make one more jump. Let's see if we can get a good view of it, but I think you get the idea. And here we go. We've landed. Guys, beyond these trees is the International Convention Center. We'll just take one more step forward. Here it is. And we're going to walk inside to over here. And over there, what is going to end up being maybe the most famous song in the history of Jerusalem, besides maybe if I forget Jerusalem, the eternal song from ancient times, this is going to be sung over here in Binyanei Ha'umah, in the International Convention Center. Now, what's going on? Before we get to the song, back then, every year, When Independence Day is over, right? We're 24 hours now after the events of Yeshivat Merkaz Harav that we spoke about before. At the end of Independence Day, there's going to be a song competition, a song festival for unknown singers. Now, Teddy Kollek, who back then was the mayor of Jerusalem, is going to turn to who is an already very famous singer, Naomi Shemer, and he's going to say to her, Naomi, can you please write a song for Jerusalem to be sung at halftime? Not part of the competition, just on a break when the judges are voting on which song is going to win the evening. Naomi Shemer says no problem. She writes the song, the words, the lyrics, and she's going to give the song to a young and unknown singer at the time, a young 19-year-old lady by the name of Shuli Natan, who's going to sing for the first time Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of Gold. And the crowd and Israel are captivated. What's the song? Let's go. Let's go back to the song over here. Here we go. But before we get to the song, something happens in the middle of the day as we're walking from this religious yeshiva. Okay, these couple blocks up to here. Let me go with this over here. From this religious yeshiva, we're walking a couple blocks to the International Convention Center. Okay, where the song is going to be written and sung by somebody totally secular, very different than the rabbis that are and people that are in Yeshivat Merkaz Harav. During these 24 hours between these two places over here, dramatic events will start to happen. Yitzhak Rabin, that's his picture over here back then, he's the Ramatkal, the head of the Israeli army, the chief of staff, is going to start receiving reports during Independence Day that the Egyptian army is starting to make their way towards the Sinai Peninsula. And this is an act of war. And we're going to get back to that in a minute. He's getting these reports that night, so nobody really knows what's going on. And Shuli Natan is going to sing the song that's going to be written by Naomi Shemer, Jerusalem of Gold. And before we listen to it, let's delve in depth into it. You may have sang sang however you say it, sung the song before. You may have heard it before. You also may have not. But the behind the scenes of the song, the thought process behind the song is wonderful. It delves very much into the Jewish sources. So let's read it through, and then let's take it apart just a little bit, not for too long. So here we go. Jerusalem of Gold. The mountain air is clear as water. The scent of pines around is carried on the breeze of twilight, and tinkling bells resound. The trees and stones, their softly slumber. A dream enfolds them all. So solitary lies the city, and at its heart, a wall. And then we get to the chorus. O Jerusalem of gold and of light and of bronze, I am the lute for all your songs. How wells run dry of all their water, forlorn the market square, the temple mount, dark and deserted, in the old city there. And in the caverns, in the mountain, the winds howl to and fro, and no one takes the Dead Sea highway that leads through Jericho. But as I sing to you, my city, and with you crowns adorn, I am the least of all your children, of all the poets born. Your name will scorch my lips forever, like a seraph's kiss, I'm told, if I forget thee, golden city, Jerusalem of gold. So first of all, before we go into some of the sources that Naomi Shemer is going to use over here, just understand a little bit of the idea behind the song. First of all, now this is a song, a little bit of mourning. Teddy Kollek asked Naomi Shemer to write a song about Jerusalem, and it's a song that she mourns where we might have Jerusalem, we only have part of it. We don't have the holiest places of Yerushalayim, the old city, the Temple Mount, the Western Wall. She's saying over here, and at its heart, a wall. Uveli bachoma. It's not the Western Wall. It's not the Kotel. It's the wall, this border, that is running through the middle of Jerusalem, and splitting into two, the same border that we mentioned before. She's saying over here, how wells ran dry of all their water, forlorn the market squares, because she's basically saying there's no Jews right now in the old city of Jerusalem. It is not in our hands. But she's also answering Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Kook, who says, where's our Chevron? He's basically also saying, where's the old city? Where's the Western Wall? Where's Har HaBayit, the Temple? And she's saying, we're always singing for it. But as I sing to you, my city, and with you crowns adorn, I'm the least of all your children, of all the poets. And so many children, so many poets, so many people have sung and connected and yearned for it. I'm continuing. We're here. We're connecting to it. And sometimes it's fascinating to look at a little bit of the behind the scenes of the song. For example, Naomi Shemer, she knows Jewish sources very well, and she'll write, so solitary lies the city. This is from Lamentations, Eicha that we sing on the date of the destruction of Jerusalem and the temples. Lonely sits the city, once great with people. It's a lamentation she's saying over here. Jerusalem of gold itself, the name of the song, where does Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of gold, come from? So if we open up the Talmud, it'll say Jerusalem of gold is a gold tiara engraved with the depiction of the city of Jerusalem, like the one that Rabbi Akiva made for his wife, the famous story of Rabbi Akiva giving his wife Rachel a crown of gold of Jerusalem. How wells ran dry of all their water. Right? She's connecting to Jeremiah the prophet, who's prophesying against his people in Jerusalem before the destruction of the first temple, saying, "You're trusting water cisterns that have run dry instead of God up in the heavens. You're listening to different idols. This is something that's horrible." And she's using it, saying the water has drawn the wells have run dry of all of their water. The last one that maybe I want to touch is she talks about crowns adorned. When you open up a Torah scroll today, you can take a look at the letters and they have crowns on top of them. Also sourced from within Judaism. We can continue on forever with the song and taking it apart and reading about it. So we're going to stop here. And I think this is time to listen to this song. So double checking as usual, the sound is on. Let's listen to Shuli Natan singing Jerusalem of Gold in 1967. And we're going to listen to the first part and the chorus. And even if you don't understand Hebrew and really know the words, just enjoy the aura. Here we go.
אוויר הרים צלול כיין וריח אורנים נישא ברוח ארבעים עם כל פעמונים ובתרדמת אילן ואבן שבויה בחלומה העיר אשר בדד יושבת ובליבה ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור עלו לכל שירייך אני כינור ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור עלו לכל שירייך אני
Always very meaningful for me to listen to that song. Doesn't matter that I listened to it 1,000 times. One of my favorite things to do when we enter Jerusalem is to put that song on and we just listen to it as we enter the city. And I can hope I can do with some of you soon when we can physically tour around Israel. We're going to enter now after the Independence War on the 15th, after Independence Day, on the 15th of May, 1967, we're going to enter what's called in Hebrew Tkufat HaMtana, the waiting period, where it's a close to 3-week period between May the 15th until June the 5th, that tensions on the borders with Egypt and with Syria are tremendous. We can see over here, this over here is the Sinai Peninsula down in the south. The tensions they'll be tremendous. We have over here from Syria where the tensions will also be tremendous. And what Israel is going to do is they're going to do a gius klali of all their miluim. They're going to call up all of their reserve soldiers and they're going to start preparing for a war that they don't want. They reach out for peace. They say, we don't want war. But unfortunately, events are going to lead to, on June the 5th, forcing Israel's hand to go on a preemptive strike against the Egyptian Air Force. And with that attack, the Egyptian army that have gone through this, that have entered the Sinai Peninsula. Let's take a look over here. We can see the Sinai Peninsula. The Egyptian army will have flooded this whole area over here. And as a preemptive strike against that act of war by the Egyptians, Israel will take a huge risk, and its entire air force is going to go out and attack the Egyptian Air Force. Now, this stunning turn of events on a military level is going to play out in the following way. On June the 5th, 1967, 200 out of Israel's Air Force's 212 fighter jets are going to take off from a dozen different bases around Israel. Now, they're going to all take off somewhere between 7:10 and 7:30 in the morning. And they're going to start flying to their destination over here in the Sinai Peninsula and in Egypt. Now, you please forgive my red scribbling over here. This is more or less the route of these fighter jets. It was the best that I could do over here with PowerPoint. Now, as they're flying from different areas around Israel on their way to attack the Egyptian bases in the Sinai Peninsula and in Egypt over here, they're going to fly at a height of 15 to 20 meters. That is about 50, 60 feet high. That is all. The reason for that, of course, is in order to make sure that the Egyptian radars do not detect them. Now, as they're flying over there, taking off between 7:10 and 7:30 a.m., the idea is to rendezvous all at the exact same time at 7:45 a.m. and to attack the Egyptian bases and the Egyptian Air Force and completely destroy the Egyptian Air Force. Now, when they're making their way, there were three variables that helped the Israeli Air Force make their way to Egypt without being detected. The first one is that at 7 a.m. at that same morning, there were two big airplanes that took off from the Egyptian air base, and in it were a lot of the top Egyptian brass that were flying in the air. They were making their way over the Sinai Peninsula to visit a particular Egyptian base. Now, because of this, the top Egyptian brass gave a command to all the anti-aircraft units that were in the various Egyptian bases: do not open fire unless we give permission. So when the Egyptians eventually see the Israeli fighter jets literally landing on them, there was a lot of confusion and they don't know what to do. In addition to that, every morning on June the 5th, every morning leading up to June the 5th, there were sorties that went on from the Egyptian Air Force between 4:30 to 8:30 a.m. And what they would do is they would take off from Egypt and they would fly around this whole area over here in order to make sure that there were no Israeli Air Force fighter jets coming. That morning, the four Egyptian fighter jets that were supposed to take off at 7:30 in the morning did not take off. And why is that? Because at the particular base that they're supposed to take off from, the night before, there was a big dance party. And the pilots simply did not wake up on time. So there were clear skies. There were no Egyptian fighter jets flying around over here to detect the Israelis. In addition to that, the Jordanians on this side over here and the Egyptians had a pact. Okay, they were fighting together, and the Jordanians picked up at 7:20 in the morning, hundreds of blips. They saw everything making their way. These 200 Israeli fighter jets making their way towards Egypt. They see everything, and they contact the Egyptians, and they use a code word which is anab, meaning a grape, and they say grape, 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 anab, 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 basically meaning you're being attacked, being attacked. The Egyptians don't hear anything because they changed the code word the night before. So the transmission from Jordan to Egypt does not make its way through. It's 7:45 a.m. All the 200 fighter jets that had taken off from Israel, leaving only 12 Israeli fighter jets behind, flying in there in Israel to protect the country. This is a huge, huge risk. They're going to all come up from the few dozen feet or meters there above ground level. They reach a destination. They're going to fly up to 9,000 feet above ground level, and then they're going to dive in groups of four, and then they're going to split up into groups of two, and they're going to start bombing. They're going to start by strafing the runways, and then they're going to hit the Egyptian Air Force planes that can fight long range, and then the fighter jets, and then the various towers and radars that are in the various Air Force bases over there. And what's going to happen is there ended up being two rounds of Israeli fighter jets coming to over the Egyptian bases and attacking their Air Force. But between 7:45 a.m. until 10:45 a.m., Israel is going to destroy the 300 out of the 450 Egyptian fighter jets and planes that are a threat to Israel. They will destroy their runways. They're going to destroy their air bases. And Israel has complete supremacy over the skies. In addition to that, and this is, by the way, the whole operation is called Operation Moked. It's on that same day that the Israeli Air Force is also going to go and attack the Jordanian Air Force and the Syrian Air Force, and they're going to destroy 600 fighter jets on that day. They're going to have supreme, total supremacy in the air after that. Now, during these attacks, throughout the entire war, Israel will lose 46 fighter jets and 25 pilots. May their memory be blessed. what we can see over here is Israel's, the fighter jets attacks, making their way to 13 different Egyptian bases, one on this side over here of Egypt, and also over here in the Sinai Peninsula. And these are 13 different destinations that Israel will destroy. Let's see a short video about the Operation Moked. Before that, I almost forgot. That's a problem with PowerPoint. Sometimes I forget all the things that I put in. Very cool to see. I meant to mention this before I started at the beginning of the operation. Moti Hod, who's the Air Force commander, okay, in Israel, as the jets are about to take off, he's going to send a message to his pilots, and this is his message. The spirit of Israel's heroes accompany us to battle. Joshua bin Nun, King David, the Maccabees, and the fighters of 48 and 1956 in the Kadesh operation. Strike the Egyptians who threaten our safety. Fly, soar at the enemy, destroy him and scatter him through the desert so that Israel may live. Here we go.
It's considered one of the most successful air campaigns in the history of warfare. Operation Focus, or Moked in Hebrew, was the preemptive assault launched by the Israeli Air Force against the air forces of 4 Arab states on June 5, 1967, the surprise attack that marked the start of the Six-Day War. On the morning of June 5th, Israeli fighter jets suddenly appeared in the skies above 11 different Egyptian airfields. They had taken off while maintaining complete radio silence to ensure the element of surprise. They flew at low altitude to evade Egyptian radar systems. The time of arrival at target, 0745 hours, was not coincidental.
At 7:45, the alert was finished and they went to eat breakfast. And while they are having the tea and the salad and the eggs and all that, suddenly bombs on the base.
Retired Major General Herzl Bodinger took part in the operation as a young fighter pilot.
We passed the border. Now the land is unknown. We never flew there before. And we are passing over a tank convoy from Egyptians. And they're standing.
They're standing there waving is what he continues to say. I cut this off a little bit too. Back to the paratroopers. Look, the paratroopers, the Tzamchanim, were supposed to parachute into the Sinai Peninsula, but the Air Force attack, along with Israeli tanks that made their way to the Sinai Peninsula, was going so well and so smoothly that the paratroopers were not needed in the Sinai Peninsula. So they were brought up in that fateful day during the 5th of Jerusalem. Now, they described afterwards how upset they were. They were depressed because they felt that they were missing the war. Little did they know the part of history that they were about to take place in Jerusalem. Once again, we're back to our border over here, running through the middle, the city border between Israel and between the Kingdom of Jordan. And what the Tzamchanim, what the paratroopers are going to do at the beginning is they are going to, on the night or the morning, early morning hours, around 2:30 in the morning on June the 6th, they're going to break through the border over here, and they're going to make their way to Ammunition Hill. The idea is that they want to break through Ammunition Hill, which was a Jordanian army fortification, and make their way to Mount Scopus, which is an Israeli enclave with 100 Israeli soldiers over there. What does it look like? What does Ammunition Hill look like? What's going to happen over there? We spoke about this a little bit last year, also on our tour of Jerusalem Day. Let's go back to it a little bit. I'll remind you, if you were with me last year, a little bit of history, but then of course we'll take it from a different angle with with the famous song that was written about Ammunition Hill. And as we go to there, let's go back to Google Earth. And as we're going over here to Google Earth, let's head over to, just a second, bear with me. And where is, here we go, Ammunition Hill. Going to take us for a ride up in the skies. And now we're going to come and land. And are we going to have a safe landing? Perfect. Doesn't always work with Google Earth. You never know what's going to happen. What I want to do is actually, I don't want to start over here. Let's walk along the trenches for a few minutes. But it's the Tzamchanim, the paratroopers, that they're going to start making their way into the area over here with the trenches. Now they don't have the proper intelligence for fighting over here. Everything was very last minute. We're quite sure exactly what they were going to meet. And there were a few trenches. This is going to be the Western Trench. And a group of soldiers led by an officer's name is Nir Nitzan is going to start making their way through here. Now, the problem is when you're running through here, you can only go single file, okay? You have all your equipment on you and whatnot, and you're shooting away. And if you run out of ammunition, someone from behind you is going to send you more ammunition so that you continue shooting, or you lie down on the ground and your friends run over you. What we can see is if we're running through here, along the way, we're going to meet bunkers. All right, the Jordanians are in the bunkers over here. They're going to come out and they're going to surprise the Israeli soldiers in horrible battles that will take place along the way. Another issue is that the Jordanians also have the high ground up above over here. So they're going to throw hand grenades down below over here into the trenches. And this is, of course, going to create a lot of problems. Up on top over here, if we take one step up, we're going to get to what's called Somet Hapsuim, the injured section, and this is where a lot of the injured soldiers would make their way to. And the medic of the paratroopers, a man by the name of Yigal Arad, describes that he was sitting over here and he was taking care of everybody one after the other and after the other until finally he goes into shock. He goes, I couldn't function. I sat down, couldn't do anything for a minute or two until someone says to me, Yigal, ata beseder? Yigal, are you okay? You're the medic. You can't afford to go into shock. And Yigal says, I continued taking care of everybody until about 6:30 in the morning. The battle goes from 2:30 to 6:30 a.m. And when the battles end, Yigal says that I was so exhausted, I didn't even have the strength to wash the blood off of my hands. I just took a cigarette and started to smoke. And my officer came over to me. He gave me a pat on the shoulder. He didn't say a word, just a pat on the shoulder. And Yigal says that pat on the shoulder said to me that I did my job. As the paratroopers at Sanchanim are running through the trenches over here, due to the fact that Jordanians were rolling hand grenades down into the trenches and were surprising the soldiers as they were running along over here, coming out of bunkers, Nir Nitzan turns to a soldier's name is Eitan Aveh and says to him, Eitan, I need you to jump out. I need you to cover fire for us. And Eitan does. He's going to run along this section of the trench over here, and he's going to run standing erect, full up, and he's going to fire away until unfortunately he's going to be hit in the head and he's going to be killed. But he saved a lot of lives inside of these trenches because he was covering fire for them from the outside. And the story of Ammunition Hill, which the battle will come to an end at 6:30 a.m., is sung in a very famous song called Givat Tachmoshet, called Ammunition Hill. And it's going to be written and sung by Yair Rosenblum and it's written by Yair Rosenblum and Yoram Taharlev, and they're going to basically put together what soldiers wrote about their experiences inside the battle, either in newspaper interviews or on the radio. So we're going to read through this song that describes the battle and pay attention to how matter of fact this song is straight and to the point. The soldiers are describing what they went through over here. And it goes like this. It was the second morning of the war in Jerusalem, right? The morning of June the 6th. The darkness faded out in the east. Again, 2:30 to 6:30 a.m. We were deep in the battle over Givat Tachmoshet, Ammunition Hill. It was a fierce battle. The Jordanians were hard to crack. It was a well-fortified bunker, as we could see, in some stages of the battle. I had only 4 soldiers with me. We came up there with 2 companies. I never knew, what we read over here is simply the confusion of battle. Simple as that. I never knew where the others were because the radio was with duty. The commander was cut off from the beginning of the battle. At that moment, I was sure that everyone was killed. It was 2:30 at night. That's when the battle began. When we came through the rocks of the fields to the fields and of fire and mines of Givat Tachmoshet. In front of fortified bunkers, machine guns and cannons, 100 and some guys on Givat Tachmoshet. The pillar of dawn did not rise yet, when all the company was already covered with blood. But we were there on Givat HaTachmoshet. Because of the fences and mines, we left the medics behind. At the beginning, when they start running towards the trenches, there were fences and there were mines. So of course, you leave the medics behind. And we ran with no senses to Givat HaTachmoshet. We came down to the tunnels, to the holes, to the cracks, and to the death in the trenches of Givat HaTachmoshet. There were no questions. Those who went first just fell. You really needed a lot of luck on Givat HaTachmoshet. Those who fell were dragged to the back. When we said we were talking through the trenches, if one falls, sort of bring him to the back and you step over him. Those who fell were dragged to the back, so they wouldn't disturb the others passing until the next one fell on Givat HaTachmoshet. Maybe we were lions, but if you wanted to live, you should not have been on Givat HaTachmoshet. How does the battle come to an end? It'll come to end by what's called the big bunker, where soldiers such as David Shalom and Yaki Chetz, we're going to hear the description of Yaki Chetz, Yaki is also short for Yaakov Chaimovich is his name, describe the scene and the battle with the explosives that they'll use to blow up the large bunker with the Jordanians that were inside, and were doing a last stand inside of Ammunition Hill. And with the fall of the big bunker, Ammunition Hill it will be in Israeli hands. And I'm going to read now from standing next to that bunker, the last section of the song that describes what happens by the large bunker.
We decided to blow up their bunker with the bazooka. It made a few scratches on the concrete. We then decided to blow it up with explosives. The guy at the back would throw me the packs, and I would put them at the entrance to the bunker. They had a system. First, they would throw a grenade. Then they shot a few shots, and then they would rest. So between the grenades and the shots, I ran and put down some explosives. I had only 4 meters, that's 12 feet to move, because there were Jordanians all over the place. I do not know why I got the Medal of Honor. All I wanted was to go home safely.
So that's by the large bunker, and let's now join a part of the song being sung in Givat Tachmoshet, where the battle also was being reenacted inside the trenches, as we'll see in this YouTube clip.
ונפל פנימה. ירדנו אל התעלות, אל הכוכים והמסילות, ואל המוות במחילות של גבעת התחמושת. ואיש שאנה לא שאל, מי שהלך ראשון נפל, צריך היה הרבה מזל על גבעת התחמושת. מי שנפל ישמח בחור, שלא יפריע לעבור, עד שנפל הבא בתור על גבעת התחמושת.
Soldiers made their way through Ammunition Hill. There were 23 Israeli soldiers who were killed in the battles over here. But from here, they'll continue on to Mount Scopus, to Harat Sofim. And on Harat Sofim, they'll rendezvous with their friends, and they'll encircle the old city. And this will be June the 6th. The following morning, on June the 7th, Motagu, who's the head of the paratroopers brigade, is going to give the command to go into the old city. The soldiers will come in through Shar HaRayot, through the Lion's Gate. They'll make their way up into Harabait, onto the Temple Mount, and then make their way down to the Kotel, down to the Western Wall. They're going to make their way singing this new song that everyone's been singing for the last few weeks, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of gold. And with that song on their lips, they'll come to the Temple Mount, they'll come to the Western Wall, to Harabait, and to the Kotel. Now, when this happens, let's go back for a minute to what we were saying at the beginning of the tour. We were talking about Naomi Shemer writing the song Jerusalem of Gold, which is what a song of lamentations, that we're not able to come to these places. We can't come to the old city. The water cisterns are dry. There's a wall separating the city over here, city separated by a wall. And now this changes. On the day that the Kotel and the Temple Mount are liberated in the Six-Day War, Teddy Kollek, who is the mayor of Jerusalem, who was the one who originally turned Ami Shemer and asked her for the song festival to write a song on Jerusalem, having no idea that all of this is going to happen. He's going to send her a short letter. And in this letter, he asks her to add on another section to the song. Let's read it both in Hebrew and in English, because it's fun. He writes her like this in Hebrew, and of course the translation in English is on the bottom. It says, to Naomi Shemer, okay, he writes to her, כל חיילי צה"ל המוצבים בירושלים וסביבתה, וכל תושבי הבירה אינם פוסקים מלשיר את ירושלים של זהב. עם שינוי גבולותיה של העיר, מבקשים כולם שתוסיפי בית עידוד לשיר בהוקרה ובידידות טדי קולק. Or in English, all of the IDF soldiers stationed, here we go, in and around Jerusalem, along with the capital's residents, cannot stop singing Jerusalem of Gold. With the changing of Jerusalem's border, everyone is requesting an encouraging paragraph to the song. 2 days later, Naomi Shemer is going to add another section. There you go. Okay, but we're not going to, this is what she writes. But what does it say? We'll read it in English. It says like this. The wells are filled again with water. Remember, they were empty before. The wells are filled again with water. The square, it's not empty anymore, but with joyous crowd. On the Temple Mount within the city, the shofar rings out loud. So maybe talking about Rabbi Gordon blew the shofar by the Western Wall with the paratroopers when it was liberated. Oh, Jerusalem of gold, within the caverns in the mountains, 1,000 suns will glow. We'll take the Dead Sea Road together that runs through Jericho. The original at the beginning said the way to Jericho is empty. The way to Jericho is right east of the old city, going down to the Dead Sea. But now it's not empty anymore. And that is what Naomi Shemer is going to add. But there's a wonderful book called Like Dreamers, written by Yossi Klein Halevi. I very, very much recommend you read that book. And what Yossi Klein Halevi does is wonderful. He writes in a very readable fashion. Really, it's a page turner. He's going to write about several paratroopers, tzanchanim, who fought in the 6th Day. We'll follow them in the 6th Day, but also their lives afterwards. And basically, his book shows a mosaic of Israeli society, which starts with these tzanchanim, these paratroopers fighting in the 6th Day War. One of the tzanchanim that he's going to write about is Meir Ariel, at that point a young tzanchanim. Who's heard of him? Young guy. Later he's going to be a very famous Israeli singer. And Meir Ariel, who's one of the fighters, the tzanchanim, the paratroopers, is going to fight in these battles in Jerusalem, is going to sit down. He's going to sit down on June the 7th. He's going to sit here June 11th because he's going to sing the song 4 days later. He's going to write it down in the heat of battle on June the 7th, and he's going to write from his heart about Jerusalem. He's going to say, look, Jerusalem of Gold of Naomi Shemer, this is a national song, a national feeling. This Jerusalem of Iron is my personal feelings that I'm feeling now as a soldier fighting in the heat of battle in Yerushalayim. Now, the battles are going to end on June the 10th. That's the last day of the 6th Day War. The next day, on June the 11th, the tzanchanim, the paratroopers, are sitting on Harat Sofim on Mount Scopus. If you go into Hebrew University, there's like a beautiful small theater that's facing east towards the Judean desert. And the tzanchanim will be sitting there before, being dispersed and sent back home. And the army is going to bring different famous singers to sing to them to try and make them feel better. At a certain point, Meir Ariel is going to take a guitar. He's going to jump onto the in front of everybody, and he's gonna sing his song that he's written, and it's called Jerusalem of Iron, Yerushalayim shel Barzel, right? A spin-off from Yerushalayim shel Zahav, Jerusalem of Gold. And here it goes. In your dark places, Jerusalem, we found a loving heart. When we came to broaden your borders and overthrow the enemy. He's describing the experience of when the paratroopers don't go and parachute into the Sinai Peninsula, but they come to Jerusalem. June the 5th, they'll arrive and they'll go to the western Jerusalem neighborhood of Beit HaKerem, and all the residents are going to open their doors to them, and they're going to give them food, and they're going to open their homes so they can use their phones to call their families. All right, we're 40 years before cell phones, yeah? And a lot, the residents were so loving to the tzanchanim when they arrived. They say, we found a loving heart. That's the loving heart he's talking about. We had our fill of mortars, and dawn broke suddenly. It had just risen, not yet white, and was already red. Jerusalem of iron, and this is the chorus, and of lead and of blackness, have we not declared your walls free? The shelled battalion broke ahead, all covered in blood and smoke, and mother after mother joined the hosts of the bereaved. Biting its lips, fatigued, the battalion continued fighting till the flag was finally replaced above the museum. There were battles around what's called the Rockefeller Museum, which is right outside the walls of the old city, and they'll put up the flag of Israel. That's what he's talking about. Jerusalem of iron, the king's battalions are scattered, the kingdom of Jordan. The snipers' tower hushed, the Jordanian snipers. Now the way is open to the Dead Sea, by the Jericho Road. Okay? He's having a conversation here with Naomi Shemer's Jerusalem of Gold. Now the Temple Mount is open and the Western Wall. Here you are in the light of dusk, almost all of you gold. Jerusalem of gold and lead and dream. Let peace dwell forever among your walls. Halavai. We can wish and hope. Right after the war, before that, why don't we watch a short video that I took of myself last summer standing next to where Meir Ariel stood. I wasn't allowed into the exact place on Mount Scopus. Horrible picture, I can't look at that for too long. I couldn't quite get into Mount Scopus University where he sang the song because of COVID at the time. I stood outside the university with the same view that he had at the time, and here we go.
Hello and welcome to Ami Israel Guide. I'm now standing on Har HaTzofim, Mount Scopus, and behind my head you can see Midbar Yehuda, the Judean desert. And on June the 11th, 1967, Meir Ariel, the Tzanachan, the paratroopers, was sitting with his friends after the Six-Day War, looking out at the same view that you can see right now. And it's over here that he's going to stand up, and with mixed feelings, he is going to sing for the first time Jerusalem of Iron, Yerushalayim Shel Barzel.
As the war comes to an end, the following day, Amos Oz, very famous and well-respected Israeli poet, is going to stand up and he's going to ask Naomi Shemer a question about this famous Jerusalem of gold that everybody's singing. And he's going to say to her, what do you mean the water holes are dry and the marketplace is empty? They're full of water and many Arabs. What does it mean there was no one going down to the Dead Sea? I saw with my own eyes Arab women walking down. Now, Naomi Shemer is not going to answer immediately. She's going to wait a few years. A few years later, in an interview, someone asked her to respond to Amos Oz. And that she will do. There's a PowerPoint showing it. And Naomi Shemer is going to answer the following. It is like if a person is longing for his beloved and he goes to the psychiatrist Amos Oz. The psychiatrist tells him not to worry, she's not alone in bed. So is that supposed to calm me? For me, let me start with the large picture. A world empty of Jews is for me an empty planet. I'm very sorry. Eretz Yisrael empty of Jews is for me deserted and empty. And I think that the Arabs have their own poets. Let them sing their longings. So we see over here a variety of opinions in Israel. Okay, Israel is a mosaic of different opinions. So we saw Amos Oz's opinion. We saw Naomi Shemer's answer. And with that, we'll come to our end, to the end. I'll say Toda Rabah. Thank you. We'll open up for questions as usual. And obviously, as always, you are more than welcome to shoot me questions, comments, and remarks to my email, which is over here. Toda Rabah.
Thank you very much, Ami. I was listening to you while listening to the special Tefillot Yerushalayim from outside, and they joined together, and it was very, very chagigi. Before I'm asking the questions, I want to answer a question that comes up often. Everyone will get a link to the recording of the session. If you missed it, you want your siblings, your family to listen, it will be posted on our website and you will get a link to it. A few people asked that you repeat the information about the book.
Like Dreamers. It's a translation from Hayinu Kecholmim, Like Dreamers. It was written by Yossi Klein Halevi. By the way, you're saying you heard this thing outside. I don't know if you heard the background from me, but I hope you didn't realize I actually lost my concentration when I was running the tour because there's music outside. I lost my train of thought, and because at the same time I was also hearing the praying outside.
And don't worry, everybody, this tour might be over, but we already have Ami signed up for another tour on June 20th. Ami will be taking us on a tour preparing for Shlosh Shavuot, the weeks between Shiva B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. So keep following our newsletter and you will get that information. Let's see if we have any more questions here. Bernice wants to know if the lyric clear as wine or clear as water. Tzalul
Kayain, clear as wine. Did I translate it to clear as water? I think it was clear as wine. Avirarim Tzalul Kayain, wine.
Right. Francine wanted to ask earlier when you were you put on the song to Givat Tachmoshet. Who are the singers of the song? I think it's Lakat Bikud Merkaz.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I also think so. Yeah. Pretty sure too. Yeah.
Sorry for the noise. Lakat Bikud Merkaz is the troupe of a military singing troupe.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, if anyone has any more questions, this is the time. Let's see. Okay. What is your opinion of the Battle for Jerusalem by Rabinovich? Do you find it accurate?
I haven't read it. I'm sorry. I saw the book. As someone who loves history and is always seeing different books on history, I have an endless list of books to read. It is on it. I haven't read it. I'm sorry, so I can't comment.
Okay. Harold wants to know, where can one get more Six-Day War songs like Shalom? I don't know if that's a question.
Shoot me an email. I have several. I have a few.
Oh, great.
Shoot me an email and I will send you some more songs. Okay.
Okay. And please repeat again the name of the book. Haynu Kecholmim.
Like Dreamers.
Okay. Here, maybe Brulia can write it down for everyone. You can also write on the chat.
Hold on a second. I don't know. If to all panelists, all panelists.
No,
and
to
all
attendees.
Okay, like.
Okay.
Dreamers by Yossi Klein Levy. Here you go. Look, another excellent book to read in general about the Six-Day War. A different style is 6 Days of War, The Making of the Modern Day Middle East by Michael Oren. That's the classic. Look, when Yossi Klein Levy writes a story-like way following the paratroopers, if you really want to get in-depth about the Six-Day War, read in 1967, the Six-Day War, Making of the Modern Day Middle East. Michael Oren, historian, former Israeli ambassador to Washington. That's the best book to read about the Six-Day War if you want to get into the nitty-gritty details.
Okay, Sarah wants to know, she said you mentioned the number of soldiers who died in the trenches in Givat Tachmoshet. How many fell in the entire war?
770, give or take. It's about 770. I might be off by a few, but that's over the whole.
It's okay. That's fine then. Great. Thank you very much, Ami. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this special day here in Jerusalem. Whether you're here with us or far away, I'm sure your thoughts are with the city. And we hope to see you in future Bet Avichai events, and especially with Ami's virtual tours. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.